Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been like 2 weeks, but I had technical difficulties. So really I tried my best to be able to upload this weekend, but I had problems with my MacBook, which I use to edit and to store my content. And I had filmed a video, which I deleted from my phone when I thought I uploaded on my MacBook, but then it crashed and I lost the footage. So yeah, a complete mess. And then on Wednesday, I still didn't have the issue solved. So I was thinking, let me just film this week and then I will upload it on Sunday. And then, yeah, I can go back to my regular schedule of uploading on Sundays. Even though, like I said, I aim to go back to 2 videos a week. But as of now, I'm doing my best. So yeah, enough of me rambling. So as you can see from the title of the video, I had the inspiration from this video from Luna's book. So I'm gonna tag her below so that you guys have her info and you can check out her channel. She's just a sweetheart. And I've mentioned her before. So yeah, she was telling me that I should do a video about my pet peeves in books, and I was thinking that it might be a fun and short video, something, not too complicated. I don't have to give a review, so I just can, speak from the heart. So as you guys know, I mostly read at the moment a romance book, but usually I tend to read, it could be fantasy, it could be thrillers, it could be biographies. Like I read a little bit of everything, like self-help books. So the icks and the pet peeve that I'm gonna give right now can be applied to basically almost every book that I read, especially the first few one that I'm gonna give, and then as I progress, maybe it's gonna be more specific to romance books. So just to give you an idea of the format of the video, I want to give a disclaimer. Everything that I'm gonna say in this video is my humble opinion and only my humble opinion, so don't get mad at me, don't get pissed at me. I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers, but I'm just trying to give my opinion and let you know what I think. The first thing that I hate is when the storytelling is not well done. What I mean by that is that when you have a story with a lot of plot holes, or you have a lot of cliffhangers or histories that doesn't tie together. For example, I'm gonna give an example of one of my favorite series in the world, so Harry Potter. So if you're not a Potterhead, I'm sorry for you, because it really shaped my childhood. It gave me, I think it was one of the first big chunks of books that I read when I was a kid, and gave me, my love for reading. And I remember one thing that really annoyed me is that they're filled with plot holes and stories that were never resolved, issues that we never got answers from. The one that I can think from the top of my head is the small details. But for example, you have Harry explaining in the 5th book when they have to go to the Minister of Magic that they're gonna use test rolls, and they were studied in, I think, his classes on magical creatures, and they were explaining that you can only see them if you saw death. And obviously, because he saw Cedric Diggory dying in the 4th book, sorry for the spoilers by the way, but at this point in life you should have read Harry Potter, no? But yeah, when he saw Cedric dying, he became able to see those, kind of monster horses. I'm gonna try to insert a picture if I can find any, or illustration from the movie. So they're really scary, but they're really nice horses actually. And he was told by Luna that most people can't see them and are afraid of them because they represent death. And the thing is, Harry is supposed to have seen his mother dying, Lily, when Voldemort attacked his parents. So I don't understand why he wasn't able to see the horses from the beginning. But yeah, one of the many plot holes that you can find in Harry Potter that didn't make sense. Or sometimes they're gonna introduce you in books to characters and give a whole background story on them, and then never heard from them, and then we'll never hear from them again. And you're like, what was the point of introducing them, making this big deal about them, and they're not important to the story? So yeah, to go back to what I was saying, my main point is that I hate plot holes. I will say that another thing that I don't like, and that is more specific to a romance book, is when the romance is too fairy tale like, because it's not, to me, realistic, and it rarely happens like that in real life. What I mean by that, when I say too much fairy tale like, is that most of the time in romance book you're gonna have happy ending, which is the point of a romance book. But imagine if you have a series of books, for example, let's take The Edens by Daphne Perry, and she's writing on the 6th brother and sister, and all of them find love and all of them have a happy ending. Of course, it would be ideal. Of course, that's what you want to believe, but in real life, it doesn't happen that way. And I mean, obviously, one of the sister had a second chance love. Another one had a baby before they got married to their significant other. So it's not too much for Daphne Perry. I was just giving an example of scenario that I had in mind, but it's just the fact that sometimes the romance book are not realistic. And I'm gonna jump to my next point, but it's tied to this one, is when you have unrealistic sex scenes. I mean, people know and should know by now that not every woman is gonna have an orgasm the first time they have sex. It's not gonna be magical. You're not gonna pass out. You're not gonna see the stars on the first try. It's gonna take time for you to know your own body. It's gonna take time for your partners as well to discover your body. So that's why that's why I'm starting to really enjoy the stories where the sex relationship is developed really slowly, meaning that they first, start exploring, touching, caressing before they jump, into oral sex or anything like that. I really love it because you can tell that the author is realistic and know that having sex with someone is not something that you do right off the bat all the time, and that is not easy sometimes, especially with those male characters, the way they're described. And that's my next point. I hate unrealistic man characters. They're like 6 foot tall, muscular, and they have huge penises. I mean, it would be nice, but it doesn't happen like that in real life. So obviously, if you have somebody that is well endowed, you know that you will need preparation before you can have sex with them. So I feel like it's dangerous because, like I said in my video about book boyfriend, it's gonna give an ideal to young girls and naive people, and they're gonna believe that when they jump into a relationship, it's gonna happen like in the book, and it's not. But yeah, that was on romance book. Another thing that I don't like, and this is more for my, I would say, historical books, historical romances, fantasy books, when there's too much description. Sometimes less is more. I know that if you have a dystopian books like, for example, 1984, or if you have a fantasy, a romantasy like Fourth Wing, or a Court of Thorns and Roses, you need to set up, that universe. Especially, for example, Harry Potter. One thing I love about J.K. Rowling, besides her controversial stance on a lot of things, but as an author, as her work on Harry Potter and the universe, she made a great job of describing the universe, the creatures, the powers, the different wizards that you can encounter, and it was not too overwhelming. One thing that I hate when I read Lord of the Ring, and guys, this is my favorite trilogy of whole time, whether it's a book or the movie. I loved each form, but it took me forever to finish Lord of the Rings because, oh my god, the description. You could have 10 pages describing like an elf or an orc, and I'm like, please don't do that to us. Like, you're gonna have the whole family trees of the dwarves, for example. It's not necessary, not all the time. And this is the problem that I had with A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, even though I love that book and I'm trying to finish it because the story is so good. But the description, man, the description of every single creature, every single menace, everything that she's encountering, like, I know you need to set the mood. I know you need to set the universe so that we can, dive into it and our imagination can run wild and we can, really be into the story. But sometimes less is more, believe me. Another thing that I hate in books is when you can tell that the author decided to drag on a series. What I mean by that, let's say the author came out with like 1 or 2 books, and then the books had huge success and they decided to drag it on and add more books and more books and more books. I don't want to give a specific example because the point of this video is not for me to bash authors or works, because to me, when you produce such a body of works, you should be respected for it, even though sometimes you can have hiccups. So I don't want to mention anyone specifically, but I've read a series which was so good in the beginning, but because of the success, you could tell that the author decided to add more characters, more story, and it became a whole mess by the end because she had the stories, speaking on several generations, and by the time that we reached the children and grandchildren, it didn't have any sense anymore. And one thing I hate is when a story doesn't make sense, and I keep telling you guys that, when it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that you're thinking it would never happen in real life. Obviously, we read books to escape reality, to, you know, dive into a universe, to dream, to be, you know, in some magical land. But we also read books because we want something that makes sense. We also read books because we want a cohesive story. So when you have something from top to bottom that is ridiculous, that's when I hate it. But what is more, even what is even sadder to me is when you have a story that was so cohesive from the beginning and that you could have stopped at like 3 4 books, and then you try to make it a 10, you know, book series just to drag on, to make more money, you know, just to give the fans what they ask, because the fans would never want to let go of a stories, especially when they get attached to characters. And I'm like that. I hate saying goodbye. When I had to stop the last Eden books, I was so sad, and that's why I didn't try to read the Graham Effect yet, because I love Elle Kennedy so much that I know that when she's done with this series, I'm gonna be sad. But sometimes you need to know when to stop. One thing, and this is gonna be, I think, my last point, because I didn't want this video to be too long. One thing that I hate is the lack of the diversity in books. And as a Black woman myself, this is something that I pay attention to. For example, if I read an author and never will she write about, especially in romances, you know, and never will she write about an Asian character, a Black character, a Muslim character, or for example a lady that is not, you know, shaped like the ideal model. Because what I hate is when I read stories and I feel like I read the same character over and over again, because the description of the male heroine and the female lead is always the same. The girl is mostly most of the time blonde, with blue eyes, she's innocent, she's small, she's petite, she's super thin, so, and the guy is always like 6 foot, good looking, muscular, like I said, well endowed, rich. And I'm like, can we get out of those stereotypes of the ideal book girlfriend, ideal book boyfriend? Can we get more, you know, inclusivity? For example, can we have mixed race character? Can we have Black people? Can we have African people? Because it's not the same when you have African American and African descent, like somebody really from Africa, and you can write about their story, their country, their culture. Can we have somebody from India? It happens, and I'm trying to find those books more and more, because that's what I tend to gravitate towards, because I love reading about, you know, different ethnicities. But for example, as much as I love her down, one thing that I hate about Daphne Perry is the lack of diversity in her books, because most of the time you have typical book girlfriends, they're all good looking, book boyfriend the same, all good looking, nobody has a problem. The most that they can have is that they're gonna be like a single mom, a single dad, or something, or a virgin, you know, nothing that is physically different, and that somebody that has, for example, a handicap, or somebody that is, for example, a little bit more curvy, is gonna read and be like, oh, I can relate to that. Or you know, they rarely, and I'm not talking about her anymore, but some of the book, they rarely explore the financial struggles that we can have. They rarely explore the fact that some people had difficulty having diplomas in life and they're not really set for life. Every time you have a male character, is like a billionaire and he succeeded in life. So it's just sad that we don't have a more accurate representation of society in romance book, because romance book are supposed to represent everybody, especially because you're thinking rom-com. I want to be able to relate. I want to be able to identify myself to the lady or to the situation. And I feel like it's not the case. And one thing that goes with the lack of diversity, I feel like there's a lack of social representation of, you know, really grave and, you know, serious matters. And when they are representation of that, like example, for example, rape, abuse, you know, abandonment, it's always to the extreme, or it's romanticized. And this is gonna go towards my last point, and I know I think I've said that earlier, but this is really my last point. I hate how romance book really glamorized toxic relationship, abuse, and all of that, and they make it okay to have a violent man. They make it okay to have somebody talk you down, and they give the excuse that, oh, it's an assertive man, is an alpha male, is, you know, trying to dominate me. Especially if you read fan fiction and everything about you know, the alpha beta world, you know, they're gonna excuse any kind of abusive behaviors because it's, you know, you have a manly man, which I feel like the line between abuse and being masculine is really, really thin in the world of booktube, book talk, and whatever. And I feel like some people don't realize that some of those books are plain abuse. And I said that for Hunting and Haunting Adeline. I've said that I think for the books by S.T. Abbey, the Mindfuck series, where they talk about killing and abuse like it's normal, and people are like, oh, but it's because I like dark romances, and they made it like a genre. It's a genre now, to dark romances, romantasy. And you have some people saying, oh, it's normal, it's kinks, it's preferences for people, but it's not normal to depict serious abuse, serious harming, serious rape, because it can be so much triggering for people. And I know, for example, that Anna Huang as well got some flack for that, because some of her books are borderline abuse. Some of her male characters, the way they treat the female character is really not the best. So sometimes I feel like, yeah, we went a little bit too far in the fantasy, a little bit too far in the imagination, on the name of, yeah, it's a book so I can say whatever I want, it's a book so I can write whatever I want. But some people are really some people are living those stories in true life, and it's not funny for them, and it's not a story worthy. And I know that's the problem that many people have with Colleen Hoover. That's why I never read a book of hers, even though I want to try to see for myself. But because people are saying that she was treating domestic abuse and rape and all of those kind of very, very serious topic a little bit too lightly, and a little bit, so yeah, I feel like sometimes we tend to feel like there's no boundaries in book. We can write about anything, and it's not the case. Like, something should be off limit, something shouldn't be acceptable. For example, there's a popular genre that is like dubcon, and it's all about being like in a sex trafficking ring. And I'm like, how do you even write about that? Like, that is crazy to me. And there are so many famous stories that were recommended, and people are like, oh, but I'm giving trigger warnings so you guys know what you can expect, and you guys can know if you need to avoid the book or something like that. But still, but yeah, I don't want to attack anybody in particular, and I don't want this to be a bashing video, so let me just stop. So I think I gave you guys most of my pet peeves in books. So if you have any books that doesn't fall into those categories, please send them to me, because I'm always looking forward to having more recommendation. And I will see you guys next Sunday in the next video. Bye.